Hello, I am Grandmaster Ron Balas, Soke of Taekwondo Karate, and former Sergeant U.S. 8th Army Korean War. I was in country from June 28, 1951 to August 1st, 1952. I have been involved in martial arts for more than 50 years. I have spent the majority of my life as a professional educator and mental health practitioner, and this is my story. On Memorial Days past and present, solemnly and alone, I walk through the gardens of stone, and there my eyes search for the names and the dates of the fallen heroes of my war. The voice of my inner soul speaks out to me as I gaze upon the rows of the white marble markers. A name, a date, a flag by each, fluttering gently in a soft breeze, as a silent sentinel placed by a reverent hand to guard and honor the young soldier whose mortal remains rest in the protective bosom of hallowed ground. Sleep well, young soldier. I too was there. I saw you fall, and while at times I didn't know your name, I surely knew your valor. I recall other names and familiar faces frozen in time, even to eternity, who by fate would remain forever young, standing there with memories of winter unforgiving. I recall the faces of young men engaged in the mortal strife. The sharp crack of rifle fire and machine gun echo from the hillside, and the crash of mortar and sound of cannon remain as a haunting memory. Now, in my mind's eye, I hear the faint tap of the drum sounding out the long roll, and in the distance, as a whisper softly, I hear the call for final muster, and I pause to reflect that I have lived to my age. I have graduated from the universities, I married, I had children, and even grandchildren. I have lived a rich and rewarding life. But they gave the last full measure of devotion, having given up all of their tomorrows so that we might have today. Opportunity, discovery, learning, to be given the opportunity to learn, to understand a part of life not only from a philosophical and academic sense, but from a hands-on experiential frame of reference, that knowledge is not whole until the way of the peacemaker is learned. To the young people, by the virtue of your existence here and now, you will be part of a human population who will witness and be attestants to wonderful discoveries in your lifetime. And you will lead us well into the 21st century. And one of the questions we ought to be asking ourselves at this time is, will you be ready? As the lyricist wrote in a certain song so poignant and reflecting, there is a road which leads to tomorrow, and the pathways are to be found in the recesses of our mind. It is what we teach our children today, helping to shape and form their minds, helping them to be able to dream, to think, to grow, to take them on many roads to many places, to see and experience a world around them that will ultimately prepare them to accept the challenges and to be able to live in those tomorrows. And so to the young students, to young people, the way of the warrior, the way of the peacemaker, to understand the difference. Throughout my life, the virtues in humankind which I most highly cherish are those of duty, honor, and character. While at times these attributes were unclear to me, I began to learn that one of the most venerated and cherished is that of peacemaker. In my youth, I would ask, who is this? Who is that would be the peacemaker? Who is this in humankind? Let me know the thoughts, let me see the face. Who is this peacemaker? Some of my earliest recollections of going overseas started in San Francisco, California, when I boarded the troop ship, the USS Aiken Victory. I was told that was a Liberty ship that had been on D-Day in World War II, and we spent the next 17 days crossing the Pacific, going to Korea. I don't know that that was the worst 17 days in my life, but I do know that for the majority of that time I was seasick. We lined up in formation on the dock with all of our gear and equipment, our weapons, And as I stood there lined up, I remember an officer coming over to me, and he said, "Soldier," he said, what's your military occupation number?" And I said, "I was an explosives person. I blew up things." And he said, "Well," he said, "that's really nice." He said, "You're in the infantry now, son, over there." And so that was my first experience. We boarded trains later on in that afternoon and started going north. And as we proceeded north, we were looking out the windows of this train that was chugging along at 10 and 15 miles an hour, looking at the rice paddies and seeing the burned out enemy equipment, the burned out tanks, trucks, troop carriers and so forth on their sides, burned out in the rice paddies, and we wondered what was in store for us. We came to the first city first village that we came into, and it was a city called Kunsan by the Yellow Sea. And it was a city with one of the highest tides in the world. It was a place where it was considered as an alternative to the Incheon landing. We proceeded further north to cities near a base called Chuncheon in Korea, and there was heavy action going on at that time, towards the end of August into September and October of 1951, to take the city of Chuncheon because it had all of the topography, all the geography for an airfield. And so that the American military, U.S. military, United Nations forces needed that airfield for its light bombers and fighter planes, not only as a place where they could do emergency landings, but a place where they could depart from for their missions over into North Korea. I spent the majority of my service there, just around the 38th parallel and into North Korea. Happened to be, not happened, but was in places in harm's way in areas called the Punch Bowl, and certainly east of that in what was known as the Iron Triangle, the Chorwan-Kumwa area. While in country in those locations from Chuncheon and over the 38th parallel into North Korea, I was in harm's way for the majority of my time until I left Korea on August 1st, 1952. In part of my statement, The Way of the Warrior, my speech, The Way of the Warrior and the Way of the Peacemaker, I told about that I would always see the young soldier in harm's way, not thinking of any tomorrows, but certainly how to survive in that day. I remember the winter between 1951 and 1952, where the temperature at times came down to 30 degrees below zero. It was so cold that oftentimes the weapons would not work because they were frozen. We had to improvise, literally, to make the bolts on the rifles work. The one thing was that if it was cold for us, it was cold for the enemy. It was a brutal, unforgiving time, and it brings back memories to me of periods in my life that I certainly don't wish to reconnect with or revisit, as it were. I had many friends there. I left friends there. It's difficult for me at times to talk about it, but I can say, as I did in The Way of the Warrior and The Way of the Peacemaker, that on Memorial Days past and present, I visit the cemeteries, the gardens of stone, and there I look for the names and the dates of the fallen heroes of my war. And again, a name, a date, a flag placed reverently by a reverent hand, waving in a slight breeze, marks the spot where that young soldier lays for eternity in the protective bosom of hallowed ground. In closing, I am grateful. I am very fortunate to have seen the horrendous and to have made it to my time, to my age, and to come back to this beloved United States and to enjoy the freedoms and the privileges that Americans have today. And so, as part of my life's journey, I have sought to find an answer. I have surely and truly lived in the way of the warrior, and as I speak, I continue to study, to learn, to grow, to improve upon my soul, my spirit as a human being. It is good to study the martial arts as an example, for it teaches us discipline and respect for one another. It teaches us to find beauty in the world around us, and in the final analysis, it teaches us that life is hallowed. The way of the warrior and the way of the peacemaker, to be able to understand the difference, a balance in life, to be able to treat people kindly and gently with dignity and consideration, but also to be ever mindful of those who would challenge the peace and tranquility of civilized people, to be ever vigilant, and to be of firm resolve. And so, through my life's experience, through my travels and travails, in search of that whom in my youth I sought to touch, to feel, to see the face, the peacemaker. To see the face has been given to me, and now, as if through a portal of time I can clearly see, behold, it was me. The definition of samurai translates to serve. In his senior years, the founder, one of the great founders of karate, wore a plain grayish-white uniform with an unusual character displayed on his left breast. And when questioned as to the meaning of the character, was it a secret of sorts? Did he have mystical properties? Did the strange character give him his strength? The strange character so unobtrusively displayed by this distinguished grandmaster? He softly replied, "It means helper. I am here to serve and to help." To serve, to help was the uncompromising philosophy of this world grandmaster. Contrary to the picture of martial arts so often portrayed by the media, his challenge to all of us, to you, and the challenge I give to all, is to keep the concepts of to serve and to help in the forefront of your consciousness in your future endeavors. Honor, duty, integrity are mere words in a language. But on your road to seek a truth, a purpose in your life, these simple words will be as the compass which will guide you in the development of your character. The relationships you will encounter in your lifetime will be developed by your character. True friendships you will develop in your life will be fostered by your honor and integrity, and those friendships will become solid and enduring because of mutual respect and trust. You will travel many roads and see many places and experience many things in your life's journey and adventure, and you will come to many crossroads, where at times choosing the correct direction will be confusing. You will chance to encounter those who will say to you, "Take this road, for it's easier," or to take that road, for you will find your reward with less effort. Take heed, young folks. Take heed, young students. My advice is uncomplicated. Your faith shall be as the rudder of your ship to guide and steer you in a true direction, to discover a meaning and purpose in your life. And so my final counsel to you is, put your faith in God, listen to the advice of your mother and father, and first of all, and most of all, to thy own self be true. God bless, and thank you.